Hey everyone, this is Bales. I'm at FantasyLabs looking at the trends tool for NBA. I just wanted to run through how I create trends and things that I think you should look for when creating trends. So the first thing is that the trend sort of fits a narrative, or it makes sense just logically, that it fits with common sense. So with all the data we have, I think it can be sort of enticing to just pick different stats and continue to whittle a particular trend down until you have a really high plus minus, but it just doesn't sort of fit with any sort of theory or well-established belief. So in NFL, for example, we might be looking at a trend that favors running backs who are on favorites, which makes sense intuitively because if a team is leading at the end of the game, they're probably going to run the ball. The running back will get more carries, and if you look at that, those players do see a higher plus minus than running backs who are on underdogs. So we wanted to fit with the narrative. That point runs into point number 2, which is that we want the sample size as high as possible, and that's the count right here. We want that as high as possible. When you start picking all of these different factors, it's just more likely that you're looking at noise. So it's sort of a balance between maximizing plus minus and maximizing the count or the sample size. We want both to be as high as possible, but when this starts to get down quite low, maybe even depending on the particular trend, below triple digits, then we can't be as confident in the plus minus number. So an example of a trend that might be a good one would be looking at month salary change, and if we target players whose salary has dropped at least $1,000 over the past month. In NBA, in our data set, we still have 2,704 players who match that criteria, so that's still a very high sample. We could even add to this, and there's a plus minus of 1.44, so those players have scored 1.44 points above what you'd expect based on their salary alone. So this is good because there's a high sample size, and it also fits the narrative that players whose salaries drop are generally going to be good values because maybe sites overreact to recent performance, and that's especially true in more random sports like baseball. And then the third point that I think is really important is if you're going to create multiple trends, that you try to not double count things or try not to have too much overlap. And I think that this is another good reason to keep your trends simple. When you start using a whole bunch of stats and you use them in different trends, you start to double count things. So if you had a trend that is just running backs on favorites and then running backs on teams that are favored by at least 7 points, you have some overlap there that could potentially throw off the trend count. So when you save a trend, it goes into player models, and you can see it there and use it to help create models and rate players. So always looking and thinking about how your trends sort of interact with one another and trying not to double count things. But those are the 3 main points, that it fits with common sense, that you have a good sample size, and that you try not to have a ton of overlap between trends.